we are going to be having a conversation about people buying from people that they like or are alike. And our guest is Burcu. Oh gosh, I'm butchering it again. Burcu Onaranel. And she started her own company, Joy Marketing and Coaching, as a result of her own life transformational experiences. She has a bachelor's in business administration, is a master practitioner of NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. If you haven't gotten introduced to that yet, it's a great foundational principle in sales. She is a professional life coach and also an international speaker. Her focus is on helping clients reach their fullest potential to find their inner joy, which ultimately translate into reaching their own personal and professional goals. So she integrates NLP processes into her business and has created a unique value for her clients. We're so excited to have you on with us today. Thank you for taking time and being here.
I'm so honored to be here.
Okay, so I love this conversation about people buy from people that they like or are alike. And I think that's one of the most important things that we do. And people make that decision like fast if they feel like they like you, trust you, and can relate to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about how quickly that decision gets made?
Sure. I like to use this saying, which is people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is the core of what people buy from people they like or alike comes from. It's all about emotion. We, as humans, we want to reach feeling. We want to have the emotion, specific emotion. For instance, we don't want to buy a Ferrari. We want the freedom that the car gives us. So it's the same process in sales and how you pick the person to work with. So sales happens with your emotion too. And it's more for females. We are more sensitive than males. So we do our purchases based on our emotions. So it's very important to know how we are doing our decisions based on fear, based on whatever belief. Like Lisa mentioned a little bit earlier in her topic, I really enjoyed. She was saying the limiting beliefs. So these are all connected together and everything starts with feeling. So
well, and even for male buyers, really it's how do they feel about it, and then they use logic to to support the feeling. So I think all of us really at the heart of how we buy, it's based on the emotional. Do we feel good about it? Do we feel a connection to it? And then I'm very much a logic headspace person, but I would be completely lying if I said I make all decisions based on what makes sense. I mean, think about how many times we've ever made a decision that just didn't really make sense, but it felt right and it was right. So I completely agree with that. I want to talk a little bit about how do we pick the right person to work with?
It's again, we need to have few things together. We need to have few feelings and our emotions, how we make our decisions. So the list can be different for everyone, but I can share my list and through my clients' experiences. The first one, most people is trust. So we have to trust the person that we are hiring or purchasing from. And the second one is energy. We need to feel, like you shared, we need to feel that it's right. And we need to have benefits. That's the third one. And the fourth one is we need to have specific communication. And the last one is network. So we need to have, it's similar to benefit. We need to have the network. We need to have the value from that person that we are doing the purchase.
You know, one thing that I have found too, that this is on my list of who I decide that I purchase from, is I need to feel that they want me to win. And I know that seems really like basic, like of course they should want me to win, but have you ever met somebody who was an expert in their field and you immediately felt that they were trying to put you in your place? Like Like they didn't want you to be greater than them, or they didn't want you to outshine them or outpace them or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's one of my things that I am always constantly looking for is, do I want my clients to ultimately be more successful than me? And do my coaches and consultants and service providers that I hire, do they want me to be more successful than them? Like, is there this sense of everyone has to stay in their place, or can we have unlimited growth all together? So that's a big one for me. I'd love to hear from all of you in the chat as well. Like, what do you look for when you're deciding which company you should hire? When everybody looks the same on paper, what are those differentiating factors to you? All right. So my next question for you here is, let's talk a little bit about NLP. So first of all, can you give a bit of a background on it? Because some people may be new to that idea of NLP.
Mm-hmm. Sure. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And I always use this metaphor, how I explain to people, it's very basic. So imagine that we have our phones, right? And our phone has a lot of apps on it, right? It's crazy in these days, and especially social media. So imagine our mind, this is just like our phone, and we have our apps. So we have our belief systems, we have our emotions, we have our experiences, everything is in the storage in our mind. So neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, teaches us how to use our minds. So this is funny because NLP needs to be taught at schools. Everybody has to know this because we need to know how this works, and we need to know how to manage the mind. So NLP shows us how to manage our mind, how to manage our emotions, and really helps us to use the words in a right way. And you mentioned it's very good tool for sales because you can sell everything to anyone if you know NLP well, because that's a good manipulation. That's a good way to do your sales, because it's all about words and how you use your words, how the mind works, your mind and other person's mind.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to point out with this is that I don't think there's ever been a time in the history of the human race where our minds have been more cluttered. We don't go out and work in the fields every day and have time to process through all the excess thoughts. We are on from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to bed. There's so many sources of information coming into our brains all of the time. So when you're having a sales conversation and you just want to be able to talk about the features and the benefits of your product or your service and tell them all about it, let's be clear. Think about that trash can that's totally full and you're trying to add more and more to it. What's happening? It's falling out the sides. So your information is not sinking in when you're having sales conversation. And that's what I love NLP for, is it just creates a context. I'm never going to use NLP to talk somebody into buying something that they don't need or want from me. Because they'd be a pain in the butt client to work with anyway. I wouldn't enjoy the experience. They wouldn't enjoy the experience. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a context where we can actually have a productive conversation, where we're going to get below the surface and we're going to get into the heart of what's going on and make a context where they can make a really great decision. I love that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what NLP is. Now I want to just chat a little bit about how they can use it for their sales.
So it's very easy and hard because, as you mentioned, when you're in a sales meeting, you're like, you just want to do your pitch, you just want to close the deal and just go get the dollars and leave the meeting. But that's not how it works. I first recommend everybody to listen to the person that they sit in front of. Like Amy mentioned, people, you have to listen how full the person's mind. You have to take a little bit out, and then when you listen to that person, you can understand if they really need your service, and then you can start doing, or you just don't waste your time and you move on to the other person. And what you can do also while you're listening to the person, because you're gonna sit on a sales meeting and you start listening to your potential clients. So for example, if they say, Do you see my point? So they are a visual person when you hear this. And you have to create sentences around that area. You have to know yourself first, and you have to understand the other person, because visual people are very like go, go, go. And I'm sure you're a visual person too, Amy, as
I
I
am,
understand, correct?
definitely.
Yeah, because they are like go, go, go. They're super energetic. They want to get to the point. They always see the big picture, and they talk fast. So when you catch that and you start talking in their language, you get closer to that person. And that's the topic. That's this topic too. You're either creating the like between you,
Mm-hmm.
or you're alike with that person. You're the same, you're speaking the same language. Or let's say the person says, oh, did you catch this? Did you feel this? If the person talks about feeling, then you can understand that person is more soul based and
Mm-hmm.
grounded, and you have to slow down when you talk
Right.
to the person, because if you go like this, that person overwhelms in front of you, and you cannot sell anything to that person. So these are the few things that you have to catch and learn, and NLP teaches you a lot of this, and I
Mm-hmm.
teach my clients this too, because it's not just serving them what I do for their marketing or their life. This is also in general live content to
Mm-hmm.
have better communication with people and close the deals.
Yes, which is going to help you in your business, but let's be clear, it's going to help you be a better parent. It's going to help you be better in your relationships, because it really, when it comes down to it, it's about honoring the other person and knowing how to recognize where they're at, where you're at, and then create that bridge between the two. So I think NLP is a great skill for everybody to learn. I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us today, Burcu. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
The best way is my website. It's Joy with 2 Y's, and then Burcu, my name, Joy with 2 Y's, burcu.com. And they can get an ebook that I just published. And in that ebook, I shared 3 simple exercises to evolve your life. So they can get that, and that's the best way. So I can contact with them too.
Awesome. Well, we so appreciate you being on.